At this year's San Diego Comic-Con, Mortal Kombat 1's Chaos Reign story expansion had been revealed, along with the announcement of new era Cyrax and Sektor. So, to celebrate their inclusion in this upcoming expansion, why not look back at all of their costumes throughout the series and do an episode of all costumes ranked for both of these characters. Now, since there are two Cyber Ninjas and there is one of me, why not get another Mortal Kombat nerd to help tag team me in this episode of all costumes ranked? So today, I'd like to welcome fellow Mortal Kombat nerd, Dibs.
Yo, what's going on, Nick? Thanks so much for having me on the video, man. It's not often that you really get to see Mortal Kombat content creators collabing on a video, so I'm really excited to dive into this.
Pleasure having you on here with me. Now, with that out of the way, let's take a look at all 18 of Cyrax and Sektor's costumes and rank them from the worst to the best.
Fight!
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Nick here, and welcome to, or welcome back to the channel. Today on All Costumes Ranked, we're going to be taking a look at two of the most iconic cyborgs in the series, that being Cyrax and Sektor.
Yeah, both these characters became immediate fan favorites due to their gameplay, their fatalities, and their iconic character designs, which is exactly what we're going to be diving into today.
Now, since many of these designs are very similar, the only difference being just different color palettes, we're going to be lumping a lot of these entries into one for this ranking.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, this is our opinion. You know, something I love about these ranking videos or tier list videos is that everyone can go into the comments, they can talk, they can debate about what their favorite Sektor and Cyrax skins are, and we'd love to hear that in the comments below.
And with that, let's cyberize and rank all 18 of Cyrax and Sektor's costumes from the worst to the best. Kicking things off with probably the most forgotten Cyrax design, that being the alternate costume from MK Gold. Remember that very terrible CG ending where Cyrax loses his helmet and you get to see that weird, like, human-looking cyber face? Well, swap that with the base model from this game. So not only do you get a terrible face swap of just the really bad looking CG model of unmasked Cyrax, it's just swapped with the base model. So not only does it just look bad, it's also just lazy. Like, they didn't do like no arms and it's just like his bare arms instead, or do something like what they did with him in MK Deadly Alliance alternate. They just did the lazy approach with it and it just looks bad.
Yeah, I have no idea what they were thinking when creating this skin. It seemed like it was probably thrown in very last minute. It looks very goofy. They definitely made it a little bit better in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. It was an upgrade in that alternate skin, but this one just looks goofy and I don't know what they were thinking. At number 17, I'm giving it to Sektor's alternate skin in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. I have no idea, again, what Midway was thinking with this design. To me, it doesn't even look like Sektor. It looks like a completely rushed design, very bulky, very boxy. It did not age well with the graphics whatsoever. Yeah, not too sure what they were cooking up with this design.
I agree with you there on this placement. Just looking at this one, I look at it, I'm like, this doesn't even look like Sektor, and honestly, it does come off a little bit rushed. The big thing that really stands out as a big flaw for me is that in the original, they went with a very vibrant red, and you could tell it's like some cybernetic armor. And this one, it looks faded, and the color hue they use makes it look more fleshy. It kind of looks like cyber meat instead. And on top of it, it's just a mishmash. It doesn't look well, and you can see why they threw this one in the compactor and we all forgot about it. At number 16, let's stick with Armageddon for a little bit by looking at Sektor's base design this time around. Now, for the big return, you'd think that Sektor would have a cooler costume, but unfortunately he really doesn't. For whatever reason, he doesn't look like a human inside of like a cybernetic body like they've done with the cyborgs in the past. This time around, he just looks like a toy. Like, the proportions look weird, like his body is very like round and bulky, but his arms are very skinny. It just seems like, especially for like how bulky these robots were back in the day, it just makes them look very artificial instead. And on top of it, I don't know what's up with that weird like construction tape on his chest that was always just really weird.
I think Mortal Kombat Armageddon had the weakest character skins for worst Sektor of all time. If I'm being completely honest, I think it would have been a little bit cooler if they kind of carried that default design for Cyrax and Deadly Alliance and just made it red for him and maybe changed it up a little bit. This design in Armageddon is just a little bit weird. At number 15 is the alternate skin for Cyrax in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. And this is interesting, Nick, because I know we combined lists, and I'm looking at my list now before we combined it, and I had this at number 10. This is really interesting because Nick and I actually made our own separate lists, and then we combined it together. And before we combined it, I actually had this skin at number 10, so it was in the top 10. And this might be a hot take, but I wouldn't mind if we got this skin for Cameo Cyrax or for the main roster Cyrax in Mortal Kombat 1. I guess it's similar to what we have now in Mortal Kombat 1 for the main roster if she takes her helmet off. So I guess we kind of have it already. Honestly, I think it's because this design is really goofy, right? It's just like the alternate design in Mortal Kombat 4. It just doesn't look right. So I think it'd be pretty funny to throw it into the game just to see what people would say. My first Mortal Kombat game was Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and I never really played Mortal Kombat 4 religiously like I did Trilogy. So the first time I saw Cyrax without his cybernetic form was in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, funny thing you bring that up about comparing and contrasting our lists from beforehand. Looking back at it now, I do think that this version of human Cyrax does look better than the one that we got in MK4 as the alternate. I just think it still looks a little goofy. I just think the fact that we don't have like an updated render doesn't help a bunch. And the fact that we've seen human Cyrax done much better way later down the line, so that's why I'm kind of holding it back a little bit. I would like to see this updated a little bit, just comparing it, or even if they brought it into like MK1 as like a cameo skin. I think if they just made a couple modernizations, maybe doing something with the arms or maybe updating his face a little bit, I think it would make it just bump up a little bit more. I still think it looks a little goofy. I wasn't ready for like a human version of these characters yet. I just think it's just like a, ooh, this looks interesting. But I still think it's fine. I don't think it's bad at 15. It's just very much a, yeah, this is interesting. I would like to see it done better in the future though. I can already see some hate comments coming a mile away, but number 14, we're gonna give this to Sektor from MK11, specifically upgraded Sektor. I wanted to get that out of the way first. I think this looks fine, but I do have a few problems with it. The big glaring one, this costume is way too white when it's upgraded. So much so you could pass it off as a completely different cyborg. Like if they made it like having some of the white accents on like his arms or like inside of his suit, but still made the red more prominent, I think this would have been a little bit better, but the problem is, I just don't think of Sektor when I see this. It feels like a completely brand new character when you ask me.
I agree with you, Nick. This might be a hot take for most people. I don't know, we're about to find out in the comment section, but I do know a lot of people loved the designs for Cyrax and Sektor in Mortal Kombat 11. I personally was not a fan of the upgraded skin for Sektor. I thought it was a cool touch in the story mode. I honestly think there's too much white going on, if that didn't come out wrong. I wasn't a fan of the color scheme for upgraded Sektor. If we got Cyrax and Sektor in Mortal Kombat 11 and it was a skin in the item shop, I wouldn't mind throwing it on every now and then. But when I think of Sektor, my mind does not jump to the skin at all. However, his default design in Mortal Kombat 11 is really high up there, but we'll get to that later. Next up at number 13 is the base design for Cyrax and Sektor in Mortal Kombat 4. There's really nothing wrong with this skin, and there's really nothing great about this skin. It was the first time we got to see what these guys look like in a 3D atmosphere since we were so used to Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So seeing this skin in a 3D fighter for the first time was pretty cool, but overall they played it safe. It's cool to have that original design for both Cyrax and Sektor. It's just in the middle.
I agree. Sektor and Cyrax's designs in this game are very safe and straightforward. There are barely any changes with this one outside of mainly like the loincloth white being gone, their faces being a little bit more angular, and the eyes being a little bit smaller. And the big thing that you can easily notice on Sektor is it looks like they like put car wax on him because he's shining a lot more. You're right, they played it very safe with this one. They didn't do anything too crazy like Reptile or Baraka's redesigns where it looks like total abominations. They just played it really safe with these two. Moving on to number 12, and we're looking at the Cyrax variation for Triborg. If you ask me, Triborg's such an awesome character. I would hope that this guy would come back in some expansion or some costume or something like that. I just think it was a cool idea having all of the cyber cyber ninjas be represented in some way. But when it comes to the design of it, I'm a little disappointed with what they did with Cyrax. A lot of it does have to do with the art style, the color approach to MKX as a whole, because Cyrax looks a little faded. He doesn't really pop as much in the game compared to the other cyborgs, and they changed up the face just slightly. But I do like the other things they did, like how they retained like the green accents on his chest, and I like how the green eyes do glow, and I even like how this time they made him more angular, where he seems more like a robot, having like a very thin waist, having some of that sleek metallic look to it. But just when it comes to Cyrax, I was a little disappointed that they faded a lot of the color, and I wish they just added a little more Cyrax-y elements to it.
I totally agree with you, Nick. I prefer Sektor's Mortal Kombat X design, Smoke's Mortal Kombat X design, and even Cyber Sub-Zero's design in that game. For some reason with Cyrax, the design didn't feel right with me. I honestly think it might be the helmet. If you take a look at all the other cyborgs in that game, you can tell that they have like the ninja mask style for their helmet. With Cyrax, it looks a little weird. The nose section looks weird. I don't think it really fits the character that well. But I gotta say, I love how all the cyborgs look really slim and sleek in that game. Would I want to see these skins return in Mortal Kombat 1? I don't think it would kill me if they weren't added into the game. I also think this design is kind of weird to put into Mortal Kombat 1. It definitely doesn't fit the vibe at all. Okay, let's dive into the next one. We were just talking about him, Sektor and MKX. Gameplay wise, I love Sektor and MKX. I mean, Cyrax has always had the flashier combos, but Sektor just felt so right in that game. If this list was just Sektor skins only, this would probably be in my top 5 or top 4. But I do think they are a little bit over-designed. There's a lot of lines going on. Sometimes it looks a little bit clunky, but I do love how slim and sleek they look. And I love the color scheme with red, blue, and black. We didn't really see that much in the Midway era, but once we got to the NRS era, we got to see that more, and it fit perfectly.
I agree with Sektor's placement here. If there's one thing that I really do like that they did with this one, that they at least simplified and didn't over-design too much, I like how it felt like they just ripped off the head of the MK9 version and placed it onto Triborg on this one. Like, even all the lines all over the body do feel like it's a little bit extra instead of like what they did with MK9, where it felt like there were just some bulk plates here and there. But overall, they still made it feel like Sektor outside of the color change from Cyrax and changing his face. I do love what they did with this one, and also the red pops a little bit more in this one, and I am a little biased because red is my favorite color. We're finally entering our top 10 by looking at the second Mortal Kombat 11 costume on this list, that going to Cyrax. Now, there are a lot of things that they do with this one that I really like, but there's just a couple things that kind of dial it back for me. So the first big thing that they do that I really like is that they make the yellow pop a little bit more compared to the MKX version, where back then it looked very faded, it looked very desaturated. This time it really pops, and it looks like the very classic MK3 Cyrax, like that shade of yellow. And on top of it, I even like how they have some of the yellow accents in there, like the colors you can see, the eyes look prominent, and I even like how they changed his face a little bit in this one too. The only drawback I have with this one is that compared to MK Deception, to 3, to even MKX, this one's way too bulky. Like, it kind of reminds me of Fulgor from Killer Instinct a little bit. Like, he seems more tanky than Cyber Ninja, if you ask me. But overall, I think it's a good design. What do you think of this one, Dibs?
Nick, I'm gonna be honest, man. I think we might catch some heat in the comments considering how often I hear how many people love the Mortal Kombat 11 Cyrax design. But I'm gonna be honest, guys, I wasn't a huge fan of that design in Mortal Kombat 11. I think it's a great skin, don't get me wrong. If they just slimmed it down like in MKX, how slim they were, I think this would be one of Cyrax's best designs of all time. And comparing it to Sektor's design and his helmet, I do think Sektor's helmet looks much better than Cyrax's helmet. It's kind of like MKX. I don't know why I get that weird feeling with Cyrax and his helmets in the game. But nonetheless, awesome skin. I just think if they slimmed him down a little bit like Mortal Kombat X, I would love this skin. I do think that was the art design that Mortal Kombat 11 took with their game. We saw a lot of characters beefier, their arms were bigger, their legs were bigger. So I do think that was the vibe they were going for with a lot of characters. I don't think it fit well with Cyrax in this game. We finally hit the top 10 list. Now going down to number 9 is the base design for both Cyrax and Sektor in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Honestly, I really want this skin to return in Mortal Kombat 1, whether that's for the cameo or for the main roster. When it comes to character designs, I'm a huge fan of just keeping it as simple as possible while also being iconic and unique. And this design gets the job done. And since we're seeing a lot of 3D era skins return to Mortal Kombat 1, I think this would be a perfect segue way for this Deadly Alliance skin to make it for the main roster. When I look at this skin, I immediately have flashbacks and I can hear the character select theme of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance playing in the background. Great skin, love it, simple, unique, and effective.
I totally agree. This is very simple, unique, and effective. I like how they just kept it very streamlined with both of them. They feel like great modernizations of just the MK3 version, just changing up the chest plates a little bit and even adding a little bit to their arms. Even the light flashing lights may be a little bit of a weird inclusion if you ask me. I still think these are really good designs, and I do think they deserve to be in MK1 as part of that Deadly Alliance PS2 era revival costumes. It would be awesome to see those come back. Finally headed over to number 8, looking at MK9 for the first time on this list. This going to the base design for Sektor. And if you were going to reimagine Sektor and showcase that he is more of like a missile using, rocket propelling cyber ninja, this was a good way of doing it. He does come off a little bit more bulky because he has those flamethrowers on his arms, he shoots missiles out of his chest, and he flies around. I do think that does kind of play into like some of the weaknesses with the character, because in comparison to Cyrax, because Cyrax is more agile, moves around, he's slimmer. And you have Sektor, who's very bulky, which this is the first time he's like this bulky in forever, and it seems like they just gave him so much like cyber creatine. Dude's just yoked. And I would have liked it a little more if they actually like framed it a little better, because he seems very linear, like blocky, even in his face too. I do think the face is one of my favorite aspects of the entire costume, but when you look at his arms, his chest, pretty much everything, it all comes off as very square, boxy, and I wish there was a little bit more variation in shape with this costume. But overall, I think this is a great way to reboot the character for MK9. What did you think?
Yeah, I like Sektor's design in Mortal Kombat 9. I think a lot of character skins in Mortal Kombat 9 are one of the best they ever had. I think comparative to Cyrax's design in Mortal Kombat 9 is where Sektor lacks. Not saying there's anything wrong with Sektor's design in Mortal Kombat 9. Great skin, very simple, but I do think it is a little bit boxy compared to Cyrax's design in Mortal Kombat 9. Cyrax was pretty sleek, slim, but you look at Sektor and he looks a little bit boxy. Even his helmet is a little bit boxy too. Still a great design, love it, but I do think number 8 is a pretty good spot for it. Let's talk about number 7 here. Might be a hot take, might not be, but at number 7, I'm putting the new era Sektor from Mortal Kombat 1. The biggest flaw this skin has is the eyes. I don't know why it's green. I love the color palette of blue, black, and red for Sektor, so to have this Sektor with green eyes doesn't feel right at all. It definitely fits for Cyrax's design, but I'm looking at it for Sektor, it just doesn't seem right. I think this design is growing on me. I like the mix between ninja and cybernetic art style. I do think her arm plates are a little bit bulky, and a lot of the designs recently for NRS have been a bit over-designed. I think it's going to take some time for these skins to grow on me, but I do think having it where it is right now is a good spot.
And similar to you, I've also grown on this costume. The masks are unique, and I do like that they actually open from the face this time around. You can actually see how they function and operate. It's a little unique and a nice spin on something we're so familiar with. And similar to what they've done with MK9 Human Sektor, I do like how they also mix traditional Lin Kuei clothing with new technology, with all of the guns, the flamethrowers, on top of just the traditional clothing that she wears. I do think that some parts are a little too bulky. Like, I do think that the jetpack in the back kind of judges out a little too much, and I do think that like some of the parts could have been slimmed down a little bit, like the flamethrowers or even like the shoulder pads a little bit. I also think that some of it's slightly too over designed, if you ask me. Like around the torso neckline, it seems like there's a little too much with the pattern and design, so if they kept it simple, I think it would have been a little less distracting. Overall, I do really like this version of the character. I think this is a fun way to reinvent a character that we've been familiar with for so many decades now. It's far from being my favorite version of the character, but I will say it's a great way to reinvent the character for a new era. And speaking of mentioning the new era, MK1 Cyrax lands at the 6th spot. Now, a lot of what I said in the previous entry can still be applied to this one because they're pretty much the same shape, similar characters like they always have been, but there are a few differences that actually make Cyrax outshine Sektor this time around. The big one being there is no jetpack, so she doesn't come off looking as bulky, and they even help remove some of those over-designy aspects, like they got rid of that very busy thing, the neckline, design around Sektor, and they just made it a solid color for Cyrax, which makes it just pop off, and it's just easier on the eyes this time around. I even like too, similar to what I mentioned in the previous entry, they borrowed from MK9 human Cyrax and put it with some traditional, like the traditional Link Way clothing, along with some of the cybernetic enhancements. It just looks so well with this one. And on top of it, I just think that the color yellow this time around pops a little bit more than red. I think this is just a great way to recreate the character for a new audience and a new era. What'd you think of this one?
I'm gonna be completely honest here, Nick. I don't know why I feel like as I record this over time, my skin is getting more orange. But on a more serious note, if Sektor had blue eyes instead of green, I would have swapped these characters on the list. Cyrax's design looks amazing. Like I said, the mix between ninja and cyborgs is really cool to see. I'm excited that both these characters are coming to the main roster in Mortal Kombat 1. I really would have wished that they were on the default main roster. Am I excited that they're gender swapped? I don't really care too much, but totally different topic for a whole different time. I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the gender swap of Cyrax and Sektor? We have finally made it to the top 5 list, and at number 5 is the base design for Cyrax in Mortal Kombat 9. I love this skin. I love it. I love it. I love it. I hope it returns in Mortal Kombat 1. When it comes to the cybernetic version of Cyrax, I honestly believe this is one of the best versions we have ever received. Like I mentioned previously when I was talking about Sektor and MK9, you can see the difference between the art styles for Sektor and Cyrax. Sektor is a lot more boxier, Cyrax is a lot more slim, and I feel like I'm a broken record on this one, just going on repeat. I just love these slim and sleek designs on the cyborgs, and this is a perfect example of it.
Not gonna lie, they really cooked with MK9 Cyrax in this one, and one of my favorite little attention to details I noticed with it is all of the green little lights all over his body. It's just a cool way to accent and just make the costume pop a little bit more. And on top of it, I even like how they added the right amount of like dark patches in there to make it not feel like it's just exclusively yellow, because if that were the case, he would look like a giant cyborg banana. I think he just looks amazing. I even like how they remodeled his face too. One of my favorite ways that they just re-updated the cybernetic face, and one of my favorite attention to details with this one too, to make him feel like a real cyber ninja, they even made his foot similar to like those ninjutsu shoes. I'm forgetting what they're called, but it even has like that big toe and then the big toes that go with it too. It's just one of those crazy details that you never really would have thought of, but the fact that they just put that there, it's just amazing. It's just that little attention to detail. You notice it when it's there, and it's just so pretty. A great way to just recreate this character. I absolutely love this redesign of Cyrax. Alright, now we're cooking with the good stuff here, because at number 4, we've got ourselves MK11 Sektor. I just love what they did with this character. They took a lot of the elements from the previous designs, and they took the best parts about it and they applied it here. He doesn't look too bulky in comparison to Cyrax this time around. He still comes off as like that very missile barrage-y cyber ninja. And what I love is they actually updated his face a little bit, where actually like he looks kind of Bionicle-esque a little bit, but I still think it's a cool way they updated the face. Like I like how it goes down, the blue eyes look wonderful. And something that I've noticed that they've done with this that many other modernizations of Sektor really haven't done is that they never really put blue all over the costume. And the fact that that like cyan blue really pops with this design is just a wonderful accent to this costume. I just think this is a wonderful recreation of the character, and it makes me so upset that we were never able to play as this character. It was just so disappointing. Why wasn't he in Kombat Pack 3 or Kombat Pack 2? It's just so disappointing. I'm not gonna get too into that though, but what did you think about this one?
Dude, this skin for Sektor is so amazing. I love it so much. I'm really upset that NRS did not put Cyrax and Sektor in Mortal Kombat 11. Lucky for us PC users, we can mod it and we can play with their full movesets, so that's amazing. But for everyone who's console, they don't ever get to experience what Cyrax and Sektor are like. And let me tell you, it's a lot of fun. Even playing in Mortal Kombat 1, I can use a mod to have their skins in Mortal Kombat 1 for the cameos, and I'm sure when Cyrax and Sektor come out for main playable characters, there's going to be a ton of mods with probably Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat 9, alternate skins, and even Mortal Kombat 11, and you know I'm going to be downloading those mods for sure. Hands down, one of the best Sektor designs we have ever received. And speaking of incredible Sektor designs, at number 3 is the alternate skin for Sektor in Mortal Kombat 9. The fact that this was the first time we got to see what Sektor looked like as a human in a video game was incredible. Yes, we saw them in a cartoon version, but to have them in a video game was so awesome. I think I'm correct on that. I don't recall seeing Sektor as a human form in any Mortal Kombat game before Mortal Kombat 9. It really makes you appreciate Mortal Kombat 9 and the extreme lengths that NRS took to create Mortal Kombat 9, to create a whole new perspective. They really put a lot of time and energy into this game, to the point where if you even selected the alternate skin for Cyrax and Sektor, their movesets and the way that they moved changed. I really hope we can get this skin for a cameo. I don't think we're gonna get it for main roster, but I pray we get this for a cameo at least.
Yeah, I also thought this is a wonderful attention to detail. Honestly, I wish that was something I brought up in all of my highlights regarding MK9. I also think that Human Sektor is awesome, and even for the lore of the characters at this point, this is when the Cyber Initiative was slowly taking over the Lin Kuei, and I like how this costume showcases that in a cool way, that you see Sektor with like these weird like tanks on his back, he has tubes running up his arms where he shoots the fire, he actually like throws missiles instead, and he has like a weird teleporting thing instead of having that weird digitized digits and numbers that he uses to teleport. It's just a really cool way that they put all of this effort into not only its design, but even how it's executed with all of the special moves. You rarely see stuff like this in fighting games anymore, and you gotta commend NRS for doing that back in 2011. And in terms of the actual costume, black is a wonderful primary color, and I like how the red is a perfect pop to that entire costume. And in terms of like the Human Sektor design, because that's something that we've never seen, I also think that it's cool that they gave him a ponytail. Steven Seagal would be proud. And even though that this is the first time that we saw a Human Sektor, I think the wait was definitely worth it. And like his missiles, they propel into the top 3. Our runner-up for the best Cyber Ninja costume actually goes to Human Cyrax from MK9. Man, just look how awesome this costume is. Like, they just nailed it with this one. Now that even though that we saw Human Cyrax back in MK4, I've always wanted to see this character done justice and get an actually cool human costume, and 2011 finally delivered that with us by giving us an awesome black Lin Kuei like traditional costume with some wonderful gold accents to it. One of my favorite things they did, they gave him an awesome headband with this one, and I even love the attention to detail where they gave him glass bombs around his waist that he rolls, and I like how he has this weird buzzsaw that comes out of his arm that's along his bracer here. I think that they just did a wonderful job reimagining this character, making a proper human design, and on top of it, making one of the best Cyrax costumes of all time. No wonder that Unruly wanted to cosplay this so much. They just nailed it, and it looks so awesome.
Again, just like Sektor's alternate design in MK9, how can you go wrong with Cyrax's alternate design in MK9? This was the first time we got the full human experience of Cyrax in a Mortal Kombat game. Yes, we had Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Mortal Kombat 4, but Mortal Kombat 9 took things to a whole new level by making him fully human. And man, they were just cooking with these skins. And like I mentioned previously with Sektor, if you selected Cyrax's alternate skin in this game, his whole moveset changed, and it was really cool to see how the animations were different between when he was human and when he was in his cyborg form. Props to NRS, this was such an amazing idea. I really hope we get the skin in the game. Such a unique perspective. I love it to this day. One of the best Cyrax skins of all time. Wait, hold up, I have the #1 spot. Okay, all right, awesome. So at #1, I'm sure everyone was gonna guess this, is the classic Mortal Kombat 3 designs for Cyrax and Sektor. This is the best design for Cyrax and Sektor of all time. When I think of Cyrax and Sektor, my mind immediately goes to these skins. Of course, this could be nostalgia, but the fact that these skins are simple, unique, clean, and iconic speaks volumes. I'm really glad they brought these skins into Mortal Kombat 1. We got to see them in Mortal Kombat 9. It's been a very long time since we saw these skins in the game. I hope they are playable for the main roster. Fingers crossed that's the case, but Nick, I'm kicking it over to you.
I agree with you on this one. Even though that a lot of people were really pissed back in the day when MK3 Vanilla came out that they removed all of the classic ninjas we all loved, I think that this was one of the coolest things that we could have had in return, having these cyber ninjas with some of the most awesome and recognizable and timeless designs. And on top of being absolutely amazing designs, they just had so much staying power as a result. Think about it. Looking at Deadly Alliance, that helmet was retained in there, along with Tournament Edition and MK Armageddon for both Cyrax and Sektor. Sektor. And if you wanted to go to create a fighter, you could use the entire MK3 set of the Cyber Ninjas in there. So they knew that this costume was just so awesome and fans loved it that you could just equip it as a create a fighter character. It's just so cool. Along with that, when they started to include classic costumes into the games, this was the first classic costume set that we got for free as an update in MK9, and these costumes came back in MK1 as cameos, so you know that these costumes had such an impact and staying power. And for those reasons, MK3 Cyrax and Sektor are the best Cyber Ninja costumes of all time. And so there you have our ranking for every single Cyrax and Sektor costume ranked from worst to best. Which one was your favorite and which one was your least favorite? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below and let's have a fun discussion about it.
I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Nick, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast doing this with you, man. And just remember, everyone, this is our opinion, this is our tier list, but we really want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Let's have debates. Let's hear what you guys think, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining me on this fun adventure. It's been a long time coming, so where can fellow Whackpackers find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Island Boys. I know, I created this channel long before the other Island Boys, I promise you guys, but on my channel, I cover a lot of Mortal Kombat content where it comes to mods, gameplay, tier lists, ranking videos, interviews, all that fun stuff. So thank you so much, Nick, for having me on the video today, and I hope you guys enjoyed.
Thank you, and please go check out his channel and show your support. I'll leave a card up here for you so you can go do that. And while you're at it, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and share for more fun rankings and Mortal content. I have more fun costumes ranked coming down the line, along with some featuring some of our favorite superheroes and some other Mortal Kombat characters, so stay tuned for that. Again, thank you so much for your continuous support. My name is Nick, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Fight!